up, good people? I'm riding and probably gonna be riding for a little bit, not a lot of bit, a little bit. So I decided to come and chit chat. What I want to chit chat about is trusting the process, but of course, it's a play on the title, so I'm talking. But trusting the process is what I want to talk about. So, how y'all doing? My name is Kashaya, your host with the Else Elevation YouTube channel as well as a blogcast. I do have a blog. It is also called Else Elevation, where I talk about different things concerning faith, as well as there is a reflections tab, which is just some of my vents of my personal life. But unfortunately, due to me being stalked and watched and hacked, that wall, there is a paywall on the reflections tab, but because I'm being hacked and stalked, people are still able to see it bypassing the paywall. So there goes money due to this stalking, impeding on my livelihood. Anywho, what I want to talk about is trusting the process. Trusting the process. So at first I was going to title this Trusting the Process, Life After Trauma, or Life After, I don't know, just something, trusting the process, dealing with trauma. This came about for multiple things. Excuse me. Hi, if you're new here, my name is Kashaya. I typically talk about stuff of faith, but every blue moon I'll do something random. But typically something pertaining to my faith will flow into it. So something of my faith is going to flow into this, okay? That's what I do sometimes. So if you're here new, welcome. Hey, how you doing? If you are a returning watcher, hey, how you doing? I'm glad you're still tuned in. Anywho, listen. Trust in the process, okay? So I was sitting here riding, going to put some air in my tire. I gotta change the we ain't gonna talk about that. We don't care about that. So I was sitting here riding, and one of the things I was thinking about just concerning my life and relationships and different things like that, right? A lot of people will know that you've experienced different things, especially if you're being cyber stalked and the world has access to your life. They'll see you go through different things, and they'll see how you handle things. But they don't realize always the things that you have to work on in the back end, or they don't take into consideration, I guess, some of the silent battles that you might have, right? They really don't care about the silent battles because they're watching you overcome different things that maybe they might not have been able to overcome, or whatever the case may be, right? Who knows what their reason it is? I'm just giving examples. And a lot of people say, oh, you need to go to therapy, you need to do this, you need to do that. I am a person that believes in therapy. For me, do I believe in therapy today for myself? No. And the reason that I do not believe in therapy for myself, I'm not telling you not to go, because in my past, before I was cyber stalked, I actually did go to therapy. So I do agree with people going to therapy if they need to go to therapy, right? Sometimes the things that you experience or go through, you cannot always process by yourself. But the beautiful thing about other people who are not me, your life is not publicly available, right? So your therapist or your life coach or whoever you choose to go to does not have viewable access to all areas of your life, who will then try and give you advice based off of what they see, not based off of what you're saying. So there is too many factors that are playing into it, right? And your therapist try to overstep different things. So right now for me, would I go to therapy? No. Okay, I would not go to therapy, because when I was going to therapy during this process, when I first realized that I was being cyber stalked at the level that I was, when my therapist actually started, I feel like she was starting to experience some of the aftermath of me being cyber stalked. I noticed that she then changed how she was trying to provide therapy to me, not because of what she was genuinely discussing with me. Like, there was a shift in how she provided therapy, and I realized it, so I stopped going to her. I don't believe that the shift was made because of natural therapy practices. I believe she was influenced by outside circumstances, and so I stopped going to her. That's neither here nor there. I'm just giving that background because of what's about to follow next. So I always reflect. I'm a big advocate as well on reflecting, because I believe when you reflect, then it helps you to propel forward. It helps you to navigate your next steps when you do decide to move forward in life, or whatever the case may be. One of the areas that I realized in reflecting that I'm gonna have to figure out some extra TLC, tender loving care, to give myself on, came up. Okay, one of those areas came up. I'm always kind of reflecting, like, okay, Kashaya, you've managed to overcome this. It's all mental and different things like that. You've managed to, tackle this area. You do moderately pretty well here. This area you might need a lot of extra work in, but for the most part, it's under wraps. Like, you're doing pretty good. But then there was an area that came up, and I was like, dang, like, what am I gonna do with this area? And so trusting the process came about. The area, though, is trust. The area is trust. Trust is the area that I was like, okay, how do I navigate my experiences with people when it comes to trusting them, right? One, I'm being cyber stalked. There are people who I encounter, who I meet, and they're always bringing up things based off of what they see in my life, right? There's never any genuine conversation how I once was able to converse with people, right? I don't have that luxury, sadly, when I encounter people. So they always either having conversations around me, about me, but never to me. Or when they talk to me, then they're trying to like sprinkle in different things that they've seen in my life without directly saying it, but you can tell that's what they're doing. It's really weird. Nonetheless, trust was the area. Funny enough, though, as I was sitting there thinking about it, when I used to go to therapy and I was doing, I was taking accountability of me realizing that I would need some type of extra support in processing this whole ordeal, right? I hope nobody else has to go through this, but if you do, hopefully you can reference what I'm about to talk about, and it'll give you some type of help or strength if you do have to encounter a situation like this. Hopefully you never have to deal with something like this at this magnitude, because it's very interesting. And if you don't have a strong mind, it will easily break you. Like, I'm not even being funny. If you don't have a strong mind and a strong spirit, a strong faith, it will crumble you. It will crush you, okay? It will. Thankfully for me, I do have a strong mind and a strong faith, and I'm grateful for both of those things. However, when I used to go to therapy and I was working through different things, right? One of the things she told me was in relation to trust. She said trust isn't about trusting the other person. It's about trusting yourself. Trust isn't about the other person. It's about trusting yourself. When she said that, so many light bulbs went off for me various different reasons, but so many light bulbs went off for me. Oftentimes, we'll get in different situations or scenarios or relationships, and we stress or wonder whether or not the relationships are going to work. And the biggest thing is not whether or not the relationship is going to work, it's whether or not we work. Whether or not we work. And what I mean by that is, do we trust our intuition? Do we trust ourselves to provide us with the signals or some type of confirmation concerning the experiences or situations that we are in, right? Do we trust ourselves? And that is everything. That's everything. Because even if you are in a relationship with somebody else, right, and maybe they are doing something but they're not being forthcoming about it, they're not being honest about it, are you going to trust your instincts when your instincts are telling you that this person is doing something? Or are you going to question them and be like, nah, I'm going to just wait till I have solid proof? Like, do you trust yourself? And I'm so grateful for the time that I did go to therapy prior to this situation, right? I'm so grateful for those times that I did go, because that was something that I was able to store in my pocket for later use. I was sitting here questioning, like, dang, when I do actually meet people who I can have community or relationship with, right? Am I going to trust myself when I'm picking up on their BS? Am I going to trust myself when I'm picking up on their shade? Am I going to trust myself when myself is telling me that they love me? Am I going to trust myself when myself is telling me that maybe they just need a little bit of grace today, and maybe they just had a bad day, I shouldn't be so hard on them? Am I going to trust myself when myself says, Kashaya, you're safe here in this place, in this space, with this person? Am I going to trust myself with the signals that I give myself, that God gives me? Am I going to trust myself? It's not about whether or not you trust other people. And when you have been in a situation that literally makes you question everybody and everyone, when you have had everybody and everyone in some type of capacity turn on you, or they're trying to shade you, or they're trying to find little tactics where they'll sandwich you, right? They'll sandwich you with some mess, then they'll give you a little bit of love in the middle, and then they'll sandwich you again, and the other part of it is mess. Those people toxic, okay? When it's the people that's giving you a lot of love, and then in the middle of it, it's maybe a little bit of toxic. Maybe they had a bad day, or maybe they just fed up. I don't know. But then they sandwich it with more love, right? Those people you can probably trust better than the people that are sandwiching and the love is in the center and not the two pieces of bread, right? I learned that technique as an EC teacher. They was telling me about that when we had to do our reviews. Shout out to EC. Woo woo. Anyway, but I was just sitting here processing it, right? This entire situation that I've been experiencing has really made me look at everybody with a fine tooth comb, okay? A fine tooth comb. I've had to, right? There are too many people in high positions who feel some type of way. For whatever reason, they feel some type of way, right? They throw all these subliminals, or they do all of these things. And then there's also too many people that's not in high positions that feel some type of way, right? I hear them cackling and yelling and being intentionally loud every day, all the time, just because they want me to hear their dislike for me, even though they never directly tell me themselves, but whatever the case may be, right? However, it's still not about whether or not I can trust them. It's about whether or not you trust yourself through the process, right? When I think about different people in the Bible and the different things that they had to experience before they got to their promised land, or before God brought them out of their situation, right? You think about Job. Job knew that he didn't do anything wrong, even though there were, I won't go on that tangent right now. We'll just stick to the standard Job story in the Bible, right? But Job knew that there was nothing wrong that he did, right? But he trusted himself and God in the process, right? He knew that if he just endured through all of the slander, all of the betrayal, all of his friends turning against him losing everything, right? That God was going to eventually bring him out on the other side of things, and things were going to work out, right? He trusted the process. When you think about Moses, right? Moses at first was living a good life, right? He was living with Pharaoh and them. And then he came from living with the very same people that he had to go up against to living with who he truly was, right? He truly was an Israelite. But he was living with Pharaoh, the very same people that he had to go up against. But he trusted the process, right? He trusted God. Being gang stalked, being cyber stalked is one of the most craziest things I have ever experienced in my life. This is the craziest thing I have ever experienced in my life. It's like literally feeling like sometimes you are out of your body watching yourself go through things sometimes, right? Because it's you trying to process how the heck you got in this situation, number one. Even though you didn't put yourself in a situation, some other genius decided to put you in this situation because of their own craziness and things that they didn't want to deal with concerning themselves, right? Anywho, but it's not about the process in itself. It's about you knowing that you can get through it, right? You knowing that regardless of what's happening in the midst of the different trials and tribulations, that you're going to trust the cues that you're receiving, and you're not going to question it and allow yourself to feel any type of way, because you trust yourself, right? You trust the process. You trust that regardless of what's going on, you good. I'm so grateful that I had that nugget in my pocket, because I was really about to sit here and go on a tangent concerning that, when everything literally has already been written. I just have to continue to trust the process. That's it. I've made it far. I've made it this far, thankfully, through, God just holding my hand and keeping me and encouraging me and using others to encourage me sometimes. Thank God. And I'm grateful for that, because I know there's going to come a time where I have to return that, right? I have to encourage others. Like, how am I going to get other people through something that might be stressful for them, right? I was just talking to somebody, and we're just talking about life, different things in life. But one of the things I'm grateful for that this situation has allowed me the ability to take from it is that there's really no need to stress about anything. Like, there's literally no need to stress about anything. I've been in some situations that just don't make sense, but they've always worked out. They've always worked out, and it has taught me to not stress excessively anyways, because I'm a spirit in this human body. Of course, there are some things that I look at and I'm thinking about, I'm worried about a little bit. But I don't allow myself to stress to the point where I'm tripping long about something that's truly insignificant. There's so much stuff going on right now in the world, and a lot of people are, panicking. They're trying to figure out what can they do, how are they going to maintain, how are they going to survive this, how are they going to provide this. And it's really just trusting the process. And I know people don't want to hear that because I'm assuming they have made these plans for themselves. And so all of these things that are coming up feel like it's a wrench in their plans. Sometimes it literally is a wrench in their plans, right? They've made these plans for themselves and they're like, oh, I'm going to accomplish and do X, Y, Z. And right now, with all of the stuff going on in the world, sometimes sitting still or being still is the best thing that you can do. Just allow God and the situation to be what it is. And that's sometimes very uncomfortable to have to accept, because we have gotten so accustomed to feeling like we have to control everything, when really God is the one controlling and navigating things. We can sit here and plan all day what we want to do, but at the end of the day, God is going to rule and reign how he sees fit. We just have to trust the process. There are people right now that kind of panicking and upset concerning the food stamp stuff, which I genuinely understand. Groceries can be expensive very quickly. However, God says not even the birds worry about their food. That he always provides for us in the wilderness or during the famine. We just got to trust the process. Excuse me. I don't know why trust was something that came up as one of the things that I was sitting here reflecting on, but I believe that God puts us through certain situations because he wants to establish a trust within us that relies on him. I believe God brings about situations in our lives for us to be able to establish a system of trust that forces us to rely on him. There are so many things that have taken place in my life that I've made it through, and I know it was nobody but God. Even in my errors, even in my wrongs, even in my desires for things that maybe I don't fully understand why I'm desiring the things, or maybe I do understand the desires for things, but nonetheless, I made it through things that I know was nothing and no one but God. And because of that, it has built and established a trust in me to just understand and understand that everything always works out. Even when it seems like it's not going to work out. It always works out. Going through something deemed as traumatic is hard or difficult trying to establish community, especially in my situation, because so much of the community is worried about insignificant stuff sometimes when it comes to my life. Like, they're too busy trying to fix something. The same way Job's friend was doing. All of Job's friend was trying to fix the situation. They were trying to fix the situation by trying to fix Job or blaming Job for why he's in the situation that he's in. When really it was God the whole time orchestrating it. It was God allowing the devil to do what he wanted. Trusting the process isn't about necessarily trusting the other players in the board. It's about trusting whether or not your inner navigation is going to steer you correctly. Trusting the process is about you trusting your inner navigation to get you where you need to be. For believers, our inner navigation, of course, is our inner man, but it's also that still small voice, right? It's God. It's trusting the direction that God navigates us to. It's trusting God to be the light, the God in our life, right? Sometimes God had his prophets and his disciples do the craziest things that didn't make sense or would be considered all types of ways, right? But it was still God in the mix of it. Trusting the process is about trusting your inner man to guide and navigate you correctly. It's not about whether or not others around you understand your process. It's not about whether or not others around you like you or any of those things. It's about trusting your inner man to guide you and steward you correctly. So what if people dislike you? So what if people hate you? Do you trust yourself to be able to point out the fact that they don't? Do you trust yourself when your spirit tells you that they playing in your face, regardless of how they try to make it appear like they not? Because people can and will tell you anything. They can and will tell you anything. And if they're an insecure person, they truly will, because they're worried about how they're viewed by others, right? And if they can be viewed highly by others because they're picking or talking down on you, they will do that. So it's not about whether or not you trust them. It's about whether or not you trust yourself to see who they are, despite who they're trying to present themselves as. I was just sitting here wondering, like, Lord, I've overcome, I've navigated through all of these other things. Like, I think trust was the biggest thing. And thankfully that nugget from therapy popped up in my head. I'm like, how am I going to deal with allowing people in my space? But it's not necessarily even about always having somebody in your space. Sometimes God doesn't want anybody in your space. Sometimes God wants you dolo until He brings you someone, whether that's to help you or whether that's to be your person, whatever the case may be, right? Sometimes He just wants you dolo until He makes your enemies your footstools, right? He just needs you to sit over here and chill out and be quiet real quick. Or maybe not be quiet. He just needs you to just be easy, to relax, to trust and know that it's all going to work out. Where am I at? Where am I at? Trust the process. If you've gone through something traumatic, experienced something traumatic, and maybe you're struggling with, how is it that you're going to trust others? Or how are you going to navigate reestablishing community? How are you going to navigate opening yourself up to allow others to love you, or whatever the case may be, right? It first starts with whether or not you trust your own inner navigation. Do you trust your own inner navigation? There's a lot of stuff going on out there. Oh well, I'm already committed now. I done committed. Now I'm gonna keep going. I done committed. 9 deuce deuce. That's my number, y'all. I done came all the way here and now I don't even want to go on there. It be like that. Sometimes I be having, I don't even want to go. Sometimes I be having times where my spirits be like, nope, I don't even go. I'm thirsty though. I need something to try to wet my whistle. Isn't that what people used to say? Wet your whistle. Let me tell you something. I love being a 90s baby. The song that came in my head was not appropriate. Was not appropriate, but Lord, that's crazy. I got so many oldies but goodies, just randomly in my head. Randomly in my head. Trust the process. Excuse me. Do you trust yourself to guide you? Trust the process. That's what I got. I know this is random, but I'm a very random person. So if you're new here, welcome. I am random. Very random. That's not my name. My name is Kashaya. With a K, okay? It's Kashaya. And I do random things. Some people call me weird. I call myself weird because I am. I am weird. Proud weird person, but not weird like other people weird, okay? It is a difference, but that's something we'll have to discuss another day, okay? And what was I about to say? Yeah, thank you for tuning in and listening, and hopefully you take a nugget from this. To those of you who have experienced something traumatic or trauma, and maybe you're still healing, so you're definitely not at the place yet where you want to open yourself back up or even thinking about it. I completely understand that. But when you do get to the point where you feel like you want to, I'm just sharing a nugget that a therapist shared with me. It's not about trusting someone else outside of yourself. It's about, do you trust yourself to navigate the situation? Meaning, do you trust your discernment? Do you trust the still voice that is guiding and navigating you? That's it. I'm grateful that I was able to sit here and kind of reflect and ponder on that, because if you can't trust somebody, that's everything. Like, trust in any relationship is everything. Sometimes trust is just simply trusting the person to show you who they are, right? Some people, because they want to believe whatever was said or told about you, they feel like you don't have your own internal navigation system, and they feel like they have to help you navigate whatever it is, right? That their expertise is better than your own internal expertise. And that in itself tickles me so much. Like, it's so many people who watch my life or have believed the stories that were told about me, and they just genuinely feel like I don't have my own internal navigation system. Like, I need them to navigate my emotions and experiences and everything else. They have to be the ones to navigate all of those things for me, because I don't know how to do it. They have to be the ones to navigate and regulate my emotions, because they feel like I don't know how to do it. They feel like I don't know the difference between a good man and a not good man. They feel like I don't know the difference between like, love, and obsession or infatuation. I know, right? I know. I feel like they believe I've made it this far, and it was just luck or something. I don't know what they think. I don't really care about that. But I have noticed that they feel like they are better suited to navigate my emotions, which I think is hilarious, because they they aren't me. Have they been gang stalked? Have they been watched and monitored in places that you should not be able to see people? No. But they'll tell you that you shouldn't feel a certain way, or that, oh, it's not my business. It's not my business, Kashaya. Focus. That's not your business. Or that you shouldn't feel a certain way about something. Or they'll try to project that you are feeling a certain way about something, and you don't know how to regulate what you're feeling. Then they'll turn around and use something that you said in their content. Y'all, this stuff I really deal with. I don't understand. Like, these be the same people who declare they are able to better regulate your feelings and emotions, because you don't have the capacity. But then they'll turn around and use something that you said and try to make it seem like they said it. That's a whole nother layer of why it's sometimes hard to trust people, right? But the beautiful thing is, when you trust yourself, right? When you trust yourself, you can not only regulate your emotions, you can manage your decision making process. Okay, so if you can pick up on somebody trying to be shady or funny or whatever the case may be, you're going to be okay. You can you can trust whatever it is that your body or your feelings are telling you if you are able to establish a discernment, a healthy discernment, right? I'm not telling you to not go to therapy. I would not ever tell you not to go to therapy. My situation is a little bit different and a little bit extreme. So I don't currently go to therapy, but I have no qualms about going to therapy, okay? Especially if you're able to get a good therapist. If you're able to get a good therapist, you should go to therapy. One that's not going to be biased or one that's not going to be swayed about the weight of the culture and all of these different things, right? Make sure you get a therapist like that. For me, in my life and just how wide open it is not for me in this current season of my life. So I have to reflect and process myself, and that's cool. Okay. So it's not about whether or not you can trust the other person, especially after going through something traumatic. It's about whether or not you trust yourself. And if you are able to establish and build a strong relationship with yourself and whatever faith or belief you may have, then you will be able to navigate overcoming your trauma, right? Overcoming, eventually allowing other people in or opening yourself back up if you so choose to do so. I am not a licensed psychologist or any of those things at all, counselor or any of those things. I'm just sharing with you something, a lesson that I have or was sitting here processing due to my own very traumatic situation. Traumatic in the sense of it has literally taken away all aspects of privacy when it comes to my life. hmm I was going to say it ruined relationships, but if this situation allowed certain relationships in my life to be ruined, they were supposed to be ruined. That's sad to say, but I genuinely feel that way at this point. If what I'm going through and with how I handled trying to navigate something extreme for myself ruined any kind of relationship that I had in my life, they were supposed to be ruined. hmm They were supposed to be ruined. I genuinely feel that way with no uh, malice in my heart when I say that, but I genuinely feel that way. If relationships get ruined when you are going through something traumatic, I'm not saying they can't be reestablished or rebuilt depending on the scenario, right? I'm not saying that that's not the case. But what I'm saying is if you have relationships with people who you loved or who you thought were close to you or who you thought could be trusted or whatever the case may be, and they got ruined because of something traumatic that you were going through and the people switched up on you, the relationships were supposed to be messed up. And you're supposed to be able to extract a lesson from that. What is the lesson going to be for you? I don't know. I know for me, if they were able to be ruined, they were supposed to be ruined. If they were able to be ruined, they were supposed to be ruined. When I look back on the scenarios and relationships that I had prior to being cyber stalked, right? One of them, the person, absolutely 100% ruined that herself. She don't care about it. That bride will never apologize about it. I don't expect her to apologize about it. I don't recall her apologizing to many people concerning stuff that she has done. The people just found it in them to act like it never happened. And she's perfectly fine with that being the case. I've never known her to apologize. Not verbally. Maybe she apologizes through action. I can think of maybe one or two times she's apologized through some type of action. But she's never verbally came out of her mouth and said she was sorry. This person I'm thinking about, I know she's not sorry. I believe she would do it again. I genuinely believe she would do it again. Nonetheless, she ruined that relationship. Okay? So the relationship was supposed to be messed up. Everybody else, when I think back concerning this situation, who I felt like the actions I took were to protect them and they still switched up on me, those relationships were supposed to be damaged. And I have fully accepted that they were supposed to be damaged. I have to trust my ability and myself to gauge that and still be able to move forward. I have to trust myself to be able to gauge that and still be able to move forward. A relationship ending, despite how traumatic it may be, maybe to you it might feel like the end of the world. But to me, it's not the end of the world. It's but a moment in time in your present or current world. And there will be another moment. That's how I genuinely feel. It's but a moment in time, and there will be another moment. So, if you're currently going through or have been through something traumatic and it has shifted or changed the relationships in your life, or maybe now you're in a place where you're open to relationship or you're open to establishing community or whatever the case may be, but then you realize that maybe you don't know how, or maybe that's the thing that you have to work on, right? Maybe you've worked on all other areas, but then now you're trying to figure out, okay, how do I reestablish? Will I be able to reestablish relationship, right? Because sometimes that's the issue because you've just been through so much. It's not about trusting other people. It's about trusting yourself when it comes to what you are gauging concerning those people. And I believe, I'm trying to think, did I? When I went through all of these things at first, I was trying to sit here and think, did I ever blame myself for any of the stalking stuff? And I'm pretty sure I didn't, because I didn't sign myself up to be stalked. I definitely didn't put myself on the black web or wherever them ninjas decided to post me. I didn't do any of those things. And I didn't have a problem letting them ninjas go. I didn't have no problem with that, okay? I didn't have no problem with that. So I don't think I ever blamed myself for my situation. I know some people, they may have different traumatic things take place, and maybe you're blaming yourself for the situation, right? Maybe you're like, oh, you could have did something differently, or it was your fault. But at the end of the day, it's really those people's fault. Their actions are their responsibility. They don't have nothing to do with you. Their actions are their responsibility, and your actions are your responsibility. You can't take blame for how someone else chooses to act. Now, if you say something and people respond in a certain way, then okay, maybe. But even that is still with a grain of salt, because people have a choice in how they respond to things, right? I deal with people every day coming at me but not coming at me. I deal with that every single day. Every day. People can't help themselves. They feel like they have to help themselves to try to attach their raggedy energy to mine by insulting me or something like that, right? That's why I cut cords so often. Like, you're not going to attach your raggedy energy to mine with an insult. Hold that. That's for you. Okay? You're not going to attach your raggedy energy to mine with an insult. I'm not doing it. Not going. Not holding it. That's yours to keep, baby. And I'm going to send some extra with it. That's yours to keep. That's not for me. Okay? Don't get it back. And you don't like how it comes. That's for you. But going through something traumatic and then having to deal with all of whatever thoughts or emotions you may have and trying to reestablish trust, it really starts with whether or not you're able to trust yourself. Mm-hmm. Can you trust yourself? There'll be so many people who want to be your voice of reasoning for you because they feel like, oh, you don't have reason for yourself, even though they use your reasoning. They'll feel like they have to be the voice of reasoning for you. Like, oh, you didn't do well this time or this go around with this or with that, so now we have to navigate all your whole life. No, the heck you don't. I didn't ask you to navigate none of my life. I didn't ask you to feel like because you want to be all nosy in every little thought that I have to try and life coach every thought. I didn't ask you to do that. I didn't ask you to do that. So you have to trust yourself. And you have to first really be able to reflect and consider whether or not you do need a life coach or you do need help in whatever area that you feel like you may be struggling with. You might need one. I'm not opposed to those either. But you have to be able to trust your own inner navigation. Because if you can't trust your own inner navigation, you're going to feel like you're going to always need somebody else to be your voice of reasoning when you are more than equipped to reason for yourself. You might need help rewiring your ability to do so, but once you get to a certain space where you've really sat and processed everything and you've accepted whatever may be or whatever happened or took place, the next thing is figuring out how to get back to a healthy state where you can trust yourself, because you have to be able to trust yourself before you're going to be able to trust anybody else. And when I say anybody else, I mean anybody else, including your life coaches and therapists. I think some people sometimes just need content, so ideas. So they study my life and then they feel like, oh, I can pull this and speak to it. And they feel like that has to be the end all, or that's a jab that they want to throw for their life coaching business. I didn't ask you, ma'am, sir, Mrs. teach or educate on whatever your niche is. I'm not saying that. But you looking on the outside, thinking that you know the inside, and then feeling like what you say is law, that don't apply to me. I have my own mind, my own logical process, my own view of things. And just because my views are different from what yours are, does not mean mine are wrong, nor does it mean that yours are wrong. But they do mean that they're wrong for me, and that's okay. Your view may not be wrong, it just may be wrong for me. Just like my view for you or my view on a subject may not be wrong, it just may be wrong for you. But you have to get to the point where you're able to trust yourself in regards to that. Because some people feel like just because the majority trusts and agrees with this way of logic, that that's the end all be all. And for the remnant, we know that's not true, right? The remnant is just a small amount of people versus the majority. So they had to have a different way of thinking in relation to the majority. Probably didn't make sense. It probably was different. It probably was strange, outlandish. But they had to stand in it because that's what they believe. There's no difference. So, in order to trust in the process, you have to trust yourself. Mm-hmm. You have to trust your inner navigation. Trust the voice of God. It'll all work out. Don't stress. Don't worry about what seems to be falling apart, because things have to fall apart before better things can come together. Things have to fall apart before better things can come together. You just got to trust that. Trust it. Don't stress it. Just make sure you trust your inner navigation. If you're struggling to trust your inner navigation, then maybe that is something that you either have to spend your own quality time finding someone to help you re-regulate that. Maybe you could do it through meditation or deep diving into um, spending time with God and talking to him, asking him questions. For those of you who are establishing a new relationship with God and wondering how you can do that, sometimes it's just literally as simple as talking to God as if you're talking to your mom or talking to your siblings or talking to, someone that you can physically see, right? You have that same type of conversation with God and say, hey, God, blah, 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 whatever it is, right? And just continuing to do that until you're able to distinguish his still small voice in the midst of the chaos, in the midst of the storm, in the midst of the different trials. It's always a lot of noise, but you got to be able to distinguish that still small voice. Now, every time I hear about that, because of course we always hear the saying, but I think when you read the word and see all of the things that took place before the still small voice came about, it just kind of makes you laugh, because that's really how life is, right? It'll be so much chaos going on. There was a storm, there was an earthquake, there was this heavy wind, there were all of these things that transpired before that still small voice came, and then Elijah moved. But it was all these other things that came by before the still small voice showed up. And that's exactly how life is right now. There's so much stuff going on. But Elijah didn't move until that still small voice. I love that. I love it. I love it. I love it. Right now, some of you may feel like you're going through a storm, especially if you're in the group that lost your food stamps and all of these different things, and you're worried about evictions and Section 8. But some things have to be broken down before they can be built back better. When processing or dealing with things that could be extreme, maybe you're being gang stalked. Hopefully you're not, but I know there are quite a few people who are actually still being gang stalked right now or experiencing gang stalking. And the biggest thing you have to ask yourself is, do you trust your inner navigation? Do you trust when your spirit is telling you, hey, you might need to watch this person, or hey, this person is cool, or hey, you know, you can talk to this person, but don't share too much with this person, or uh, it's time to go. Whatever it is your spirit is telling you in whatever situation that you may be in, especially with being gang stalked, do you trust yourself to help you navigate the situation? Do you trust yourself to be able to get you to a place where one day you can open up back to community? It's just about trusting yourself. So, trusting the process is being able to trust your inner navigation. That's it for that one. Y'all be easy. Love you later.